Hi everyone, how are you this morning, I suppose, or afternoon, depending on when you're watching this on catch up. I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me. Obviously filling in for Bond today. Really honored to be with all of you. I just wanted to kind of check in. I hope you're all kind of enjoying the process of learning. I know some of the work can be really heavy. But again, before we start, I just wanted to give you all like such a big pat on the back for doing the work, taking the time. Just really taking the opportunity to get to know yourself through Bond's course. I think that it's such great place to be. And I think that I just take my hat off to anybody who is in the place that you're in, like really putting in the effort to find your way through trauma and learn more about yourself. One thing I have learned over the years personally, those of you who haven't met me, I often kind of like to speak a little bit with a little bit of a personal touch as well, because I've been there and doing my own work. And I do think that it's a lifelong journey. So despite training in as a coach and positive psychology, and all sorts of things, I feel like this is a journey that we're only on the cusp of, which is really cool. I feel like there's always new science, always new information helping us to understand ourselves and the human experience. And so before I get into this, I just want to remind you to go easy on yourself, and to really practice self-compassion as you kind of move through each stage, each drop of theory. Even if every single talk, every deep dive, you were able to kind of steal one or two little golden nuggets, or maybe hopefully today there'll be some interactive aspects of the deep dive. Maybe by the end of the session, you were able to practice a little bit of your breathing and things like that. I really do hope that you gain something from today's session. I'm just going to capture this one kind of big question today. And the big topic is, why do we feel stuck in life when we have had a past trauma? Why does it make us feel, and sometimes actually in so many aspects of life, you feel like you cannot move forward or cannot get out of that place that you're currently sat in. And I personally just wanted to start with like, what do you think that it means to kind of feel stuck? I think it'd be interesting for you to maybe sit down and take a moment, maybe press pause and just write down, what does it mean to you? And have you ever felt stuck? And stuck could mean so many different things, what does it mean for you will be different for me. But I think this idea that you feel like you're not moving in any new direction. You feel like you continuously ruminating and thinking and worrying about the same things, the same anxieties, the same pressures, that you don't feel like you're finding any sense of freedom from that, or, you're kind of just still there. And that's all super normal. We're going to talk about many aspects of this idea of being stuck. But I loved when it came up. I think I might have said in maybe some of my other talks, I remember really distinctly, a friend of mine once said to me that her dad's advice was like, look, Alex, never forget, like, just don't be stuck. If you feel like you're stuck, look, I'm an advocate for sitting in our feelings, sitting in that experience. But if you are somebody like me who has been stuck, still feeling stuck right now, maybe let's try and pull ourselves out of that. Even recently, I definitely experienced a little, I wanted to say maybe a few weeks where I really experienced a lot of low mood. And I remember, at one point I was like, okay, Megan, you've had your low mood, you've sat in the feelings. Now it's time to just pull yourself out of this. Start with one small thing that's going to get you out of that space so that you don't get stuck. And I think that that's really powerful. And remembering that you all have that ability. If you do kind of reach a space where things feel heavy or you feel stuck, or right now, hopefully you're all of the, even just being here means that you're moving through it. This is a strategy in itself to sit and listen to new content, to new theories and ideas. So well done, you. But I thought it's a really nice thing to kind of reflect upon. And often being stuck means that we are in habits that we can't break. maybe sometimes habits that aren't moving us again in the direction which we desire. And that's a really big thing. It's thinking about what is the new desired state. So my question for you, sometimes I think it's really hard in our lives. And I personally think that life can be busy. So my first question for you is, have you ever felt stuck, and or are you feeling that right now? What does that mean? And my second question is, maybe let's reflect on what the desired state is. Like, what is the goal? If you could feel not stuck, what would that look like for you in your situation? And what would those feelings be? You know, you could even look, you don't have to always draw anything perfect, but you could draw like a stick person if you wanted. And around it, maybe just take a moment to think about that desired state. And for me, some of the things that come to mind when I'm stuck is like, I feel like things feel very serious in my thoughts and my being. So I put something like laughing more. That might be my desired state to kind of get out of that seriousness. You know, I might feel stuck in that heaviness. I might want to feel, again, I said heavy. So the idea might be, maybe I want to feel a little bit lighter. Maybe I want to feel a little bit more free from my thoughts. So I just want you to think a little bit of this concept, you know, feeling free, feeling light. Maybe we can kind of just, I want to say mind map, maybe with a stick person. It's a really nice idea, because once in a while, if we want to get out of this idea of being stuck, I do think that it's a nice exercise to reflect on, well, if stuck is a word that I'm resonating with, what is it that I want to feel unstuck from? What is the opposite of that? You know, I'm going to put things like joy, and I'm going to put things in there like fun, because my desired state is that. I'm even going to put playfulness, you know, getting out of that seriousness, in that rumination, or coming back to some of those, you know, unhealthy beliefs that we've created for ourselves. And it's very easy that we can do some work to get out of some sort of healthy thing. You know, maybe we've done some work to get into some healthy thinking, but it's equally easy when something feels triggering that we go back. Remember, you pulled yourself out. We've not been stuck forever. You could always grab for those tools to get unstuck. So today is about thinking, what does that mean to be stuck? Why do we often feel stuck, potentially if we've experienced trauma or something that has felt very, very heavy? And how can we move through that feeling of being stuck? And that's what our session is today. So when suffering from past trauma, we do often feel stuck in our lives due to a combination of psychological, emotional, and cognitive factors. And we're thinking a little bit about, that whole big concoction of brain, our thinking patterns, and our emotions. It runs through the entire body, the nervous system. So it's absolutely easy and normal that we feel this way. And so understanding some of the reasons that we might feel this way based on trauma, might help us first kind of take that little bit of a deep dive, into this feeling of not being able to move forward. One of the main reasons, that a lot of people feel this sense of being stuck is fear and avoidance. And you might resonate with some of these, all of these, one of these, but just let's have a little think and see what might pertain to your scenario. In terms of fear and avoidance, I'm kind of referring to the idea, sorry, I'm tripping over my words. Trauma survivors often experience that fear and anxiety, and that's related to a trauma experience. So when you maybe want to go out into a group or situation that might feel triggering, we obviously will go into a space of fight or flight response, fight, flight, freeze, fawn. And this fear can often lead us to absolute total avoidance. Like I can think of many examples of times when I've just gone, actually, no, I'm not going to go, or I'm not going to put myself in that situation, when maybe that would have been a really great, healthy experience for me, but it felt triggering. So I decided to isolate myself, stay home, send my husband to go instead. make my excuses. And it's not a bad thing to set boundaries, to say no, to stay in our comfort zone, but we can't live our whole lives fully, and we cannot get to that desired state that maybe we've created here if we stay in that safe zone of fear and then avoidance. So if you maybe recognize that, I think there's a really big question that comes up for us. And I think a really healthy question is, how could this situation help me work through something? Is it a healthy experience that I could maybe take this as a baby step in the right direction? And if you feel like you want to avoid it, but you also feel a sense of like, this might be good for me, this feels like a safe place to explore working through that, maybe see if you can kind of get out and go to the social occasion, for example. But again, we have to listen and have all of our tools with us if that's it. So in terms of finding a solution to fear and avoidance, I would really encourage you just to kind of sit and recognize, like, what are the fears here? And sometimes it might have been like, I personally find like, you know, bigger groups feel quite overwhelming in a social setting. It's very interesting, isn't it? Because I don't mind going to like a big concert with people I don't know, but a big party with people that I know makes me feel like overwhelmed. And that's just me as a person. I feel like there's lots of limiting beliefs around that. But what I want to say to you is, I'm sharing mine with you, because if we could start to recognize, what are my actual fears? What are some of the feelings that I might actually be having around this? You might be able to break down and think like, hey, I think that this is not, I'm not actually afraid of going to this party. I don't like the idea of maybe people, I don't know, judging me. And then we think about, well, are they actually? And you can break that down a little bit. So in terms of fear and avoidance, I'll kind of encourage you to take a little moment and just confront those fears, maybe in a safe, controlled manner. So maybe ask yourself, like, what are my fears around this? What are my feelings? And there's a really cool, I don't know if you've looked at this before, but I've got my phone with me today, because if you were to Google the feelings wheel, if you just looked at it up in images, there are so many images. You could just like zoom in. You don't have to obviously buy it, but it looks a little bit like this. And I find this very helpful when I'm trying to figure out like what are the feelings. I sometimes just type in feelings wheel and I start to look into a little bit deeper. It's so easy to feel angry or sad or overwhelmed with whatever the situation is. But I really find this helps me to start articulating what I actually feel. You could print it off, you can circle them, you can write them out, but this starts to break it down. Maybe there's a little bit, you feel inferior around that group of people, or stupid, or maybe there's a sense of like shame or guilt around something. It's really, really interesting to get a sense of what it is that you're actually experiencing and why you feel stuck, why you don't want to put yourself in a new situation. And once you break that down, that's a really great vocabulary to take to any sort of session. So something that when you're talking about fears and avoidance, and you're talking about things that, you wanted to work through into work towards your desired state, I feel like having a great vocabulary helps you, and whoever it is you feel comfortable talking to helps you kind of unpack it all. And so one thing is obviously to maybe have exposure to like this course is perfect. It's a form of therapy, and that sort of guidance. And in your coaching sessions with Bon, it's really a nice way to kind of open up and say, actually, I was fearful, but I think that these were other feelings that were surrounding it. And then you can start to think a little bit about tools for managing that. So when we talk about fear and avoidance, and we talked a little bit about feeling anxiousness as you move into a new situation, and we're talking about a new situation that would be healthy for us, but we're avoiding it. There's a lot of great things that we can do. So I know that the course and the program have offered you some great techniques to kind of tap into that calm nervous system. But let's go back to one that I think is a favorite of Bonds. So let's start here. Let's kind of link the thumbs. Let's bring the hands to the kind of collarbone here. And we're just going to do our butterfly taps. And just take a nice deep breath in through the nose, and you can exhale either the mouth closed or mouth open, just a nice slow exhalation, breathing in and slowly breathing out. Good. Keep it going, breathing in and slowly breathing out. And one more, breathing in and slowly breathing out. And shake it out. Good. If you're trying to make a decision on something, try to calm the body first, because often the thought of going somewhere or thought of getting out of your comfort zone in a healthy way, maybe it is even something simple as like going to try pottery. I don't know, going to for a swim at a pool you've not been to. Before you make a decision to not do it, it's important to recognize that our brain often has our amygdala going off. We have the alarm system. I liken it often to a fire alarm. The brain is going off because it's triggered by something, the sense of maybe it feels uncomfortable, you don't know it, the unknown. It's a very human response to anything that we've not done before. And so if we can calm the body, we can kind of turn the fire alarm off, and we can start really clearly thinking with that prefrontal cortex of the brain. And that gives you that sense of like making a clear decision that suits you. So those kind of exercises are really supportive, and taking deep breaths. I'm sure you've done the square breathing, but breathing in, hold, exhale, pause. Breathing in, hold, exhale, pause. Awesome. And you can draw a square in the air, you can draw a square on the table, and you can trace it. You can do an imaginary one, you can think of it in your head, you can close your eyes. But again, if you are feeling overwhelmed with something, a choice that you'd made, something that maybe leading up to going to that place, or something new for you, maybe it's, not comfortable going, I don't know, on a train. Lots of people have that fear, or that distress. So it's about the build up as well, and try not to get too caught up in the emotions of overwhelm, and calming that nervous system. Even just doing that, taking you through that has changed my body already. So yeah, that's an awesome little skill to your bow. So instead of maybe thinking about fear and avoidance, if you know that going to that family event is going to help you in the long run to access your people, access community, whatever it is that you are holding back from, but you know that it would be good for you in the long run. Maybe just try to calm that body. Find one of those techniques that suits you. Another thing, a reason why we sometimes feel stuck, some of the factors are our negative self-beliefs and trauma. We know that trauma can lead to this negative belief about yourself. And some of these feelings of worthlessness, and guilt and shame actually can weigh really heavy on our ability to feel like we're worthy. And I want you to think a little bit about breaking this down. So could you ask yourself, how do you feel about your own self-worth? And I guess that's a really big question, isn't it? Your self-worth is a really big thing. Do you feel worthy of happy things, good things? Do you feel, I definitely had created for myself personally, based on my trauma. I'm just going to own that my own personal limiting belief, my negative thinking was that if I am perfect, the kindest, nicest human being I can be, then what the trauma I experience will go away, and I can let go of the shame and the guilt, because I'm going to be perfect, and it's all going to go away, and nothing like this is ever going to happen to me again. that sort of thing. And that meant that I had this limiting belief that I needed to be perfect. And then if anything came up where like I would absolutely like mentally like beat myself up about the smallest things. I remember being quite young, even like losing sleep over littering. Like I accidentally forgot to pick something up on a park bench and I didn't put it in the bin. And I was like punishing myself in my head for something so small. And the reason why I'm using that as an example is just to say that sometimes our negative beliefs and trauma lead us to believe that, things that aren't actually true. That phrases like I am worthless, phrases like I am not, my well-being doesn't matter, everybody else matters, not me. The whole notion of like not feeling enough ever is actually, it's quite powerful negative self-belief, and that contributes to our ability to feel stuck because we are ruminating. Our brain is starting to form those neural pathways, aren't they? And those neural pathways that we kind of have running through the brain, it's habitual. So if I wake up every day not feeling worthy, I'm wearing my not worthy glasses. I brought my sunglasses so there's my not worthy glasses. I'm walking around and I'm seeing the world through my not worthy, not good enough glasses. I might fake it till I make it in work, but actually deep down, I'm just waiting for someone to catch me out and tell me I'm doing a rubbish job, which probably won't ever come. But my body is forever in fight or flight. My mind is never feeling it that great. So we need to get out of that. That's really normal if you've ever felt that. Maybe sometimes you're stuck in those negative beliefs. Again, a really great way is to kind of just stop and think a little bit about how you can shift that self-image. And the best way I have found personally is to practice affirmations, practice positive phrases. So flipping the script and just writing down, I matter, I am enough, and, I can achieve hard things. I can grow, I can learn, I can forgive myself. I forgive myself is even more powerful. I let it go is a really powerful one. If it is feelings of worthlessness, guilt, shame, I let it go. I forgive myself. I forgive, my childhood self. All of these things, really are powerful phrases that if you write them down, read them, remind yourself, put them on a post-it, the more that you read them, the more that you start to kind of reflect a little bit on the fact that actually that's your truth. You are worthy, you are enough, you are able and capable and strong. You've already been through the trauma. It's now time just to work on our brain. That's it. And work on calming the body and work on learning more about our triggers so that we can learn and support and help other people who might be going through the same thing. And also we can find some freedom from, the overwhelm that comes with the experiences that we've had. And so there's so many other reasons, but other reasons why people feel stuck post trauma in their lives is just never really having any coping skills. So I hope that I'm trying to, like, as we go through them, kind of recognize that there are loads of skills, there are loads of things that you can kind of take with you, whether it's writing it down, whether it's talking therapies, coaching, and all the things that you're doing, listening to podcasts, filling your brain with new information. That's all forming new neural pathways. So we're talking about neuroscience as a form of a solution or a strategy to move forward. Listening to new things is actually quite powerful. So yeah, I think that it can really help you move through that sensation of being stuck. Again, sometimes like trauma survivors often feel like maybe like isolate themselves. And if that's you, that is really normal. It's really human to kind of, it's almost that, again, plays a little bit on this sense of like, I'm not worthy. I remember for many, many years, I struggled to have a relationship in the sense, I did want a partner, and I knew that in my, personally, not everyone might have this, but I knew I wanted a family, and that's not for everybody, but I knew that, and I knew that I needed a partner, and that to kind of work in that way. And but I was really isolated. I was dating the wrong people. The people that I was choosing were people that I genuinely could, like, I could own. And I can say to you that I knew it wasn't going to work out. It was long distance. It was somebody that I was like, actually, I do not see that person as like a good partner for children. I was staying there because it felt safe, and it felt scarier to like dive into a relationship that genuinely could work. And so, or just be by myself. Definitely somebody who isolated, got lost in my work, and woke up one day and realized that actually there wasn't a lot of people around me. And what I want to encourage anybody who might be in that situation, maybe that is the sensation, like maybe why you're feeling stuck. You can own and recognize, like, hey, I'm like isolating myself, or I'm shifting my energy into something else instead of taking care of me. Very normal, like it's okay. It is, this deflection. But Kelly McGonigal, her TED Talk had changed my life. And it's called Make Stress Your Friend. And what she highlights in there is actually that not unfortunately, but unfortunately, our makeup as a human being is that we need social interaction. And whether you like it or not, your best tool, your best strategy is to go and be with another person. I'm not saying be with in any way. You could literally phone a friend. You could ask somebody to go for a walk. It's not always that you have to open up your whole heart if you don't want to somebody, but if you can connect with another human being, getting involved in community, isolation, sometimes it can feel really lonely, but that's because our bodies as human beings need social connection. So I would say look for something like, if you are on your own and you don't have a lot of friends and family around you, maybe start with community. Maybe go out and see if there's somewhere you could volunteer. Could you pop into your local old age home and see if you could go and make tea one day on their coffee morning? Or could you maybe go and support at a homeless shelter? And all of a sudden you might start to create new conversations with people. You feel really good supporting other humans, and all of a sudden you're starting to build a little bit more confidence and change and shift your brain, because you're also combining that with a sense of kindness. I'm not saying like everybody has time for that, but if there is anybody who really doesn't have like family or friends around you, that you can reach out to, that's like your first port of call. Maybe trying to connect with someone for work, asking if they might want to have like a dinner or coffee one day or something, is awesome to build those connections and that conversation. But if you don't necessarily have that, or you want to add a little bit more enrichment to your like social environment, maybe get out there and see if you can kind of bring yourself into a space, learn something new. It really does, like, that is such a powerful solution. And this year, worldwide, the strategy that was highlighted for World Mental Health Awareness Month last month was the power of community. And at first I was thinking like, community, oh, I don't know about that as a theme. And the more that I dug into it, the more that I researched, I thought like, kind of like the researcher and psychologist Kelly McGonigal says, that it strengthens everything from the chemical reactions in the body. We start to generate dopamine and oxytocin and serotonin just by being with people. That is like a concoction of happiness in the body, right? She actually said that scientists even noticed that the heart was strengthening by being with other people, by reaching out, by asking for help, in big and small ways. We as humans need other humans, and it doesn't necessarily need to be, anything too deep. It could just genuinely be joining a walking group and you being with other people. So if you feel stuck, you feel like you've isolated yourself, remember that there is a great wide world and a community out there. Maybe take your deep breaths to get out, but that's a really powerful way to kind of move through that sensation of being stuck. And it is normal, and it's a way in which we might feel stuck, and another way. So yeah, really interesting ways to kind of move through it. But I encourage you to we live in a world where the internet is right at our fingertips. There's amazing opportunities that are free as well to get out in a community, to join a group, whatever it is. There's lots of great like talking groups for men at the moment, as well. If you just want to be around other men who might be going through the same thing. I know in my local area, there's so many. It's just having a little Google. So yeah, something to think about, right? If that might be a route through. And yeah, I was just thinking a little bit about this whole topic of feeling stuck. And I was listening to a podcast that I wanted to kind of signpost you to as well. It's a bit random, so bear with me, but I found that I found myself really emotional thinking about this man's story. And I don't know if you've ever heard of the country music artist Jelly Roll. A bit of a funny name. I think it was a name that was given to him as a kid. But he does this interview with Jay Shetty, and the podcast Jay Shetty leads is called On Purpose. And it's the interview with Jelly Roll. Now, you don't have to know anything about this man or anything about his music to find the podcast interesting, but he's a really incredible example of somebody who could have got very stuck. And he describes, a little bit of a wobbly upbringing, his mother struggling with mental health, lots of addiction in his life. He was incarcerated in America. He did time for having possession and selling drugs. And I guess it's like quite a hard hitting story, but he turned his life into now helping others. And he very easily could have chose to be stuck, but instead he now has found this like incredible purpose, and he shifted everything. And this podcast is a really beautiful story of somebody who is like the guidance, the little golden nuggets throughout of it. I would honestly say it is something to kind of take away and listen, maybe in chunks if you've got little drives here and there, or you're not sure what to fill your time with. Things like this also start to shift the brain. But have a look. His story is, yeah, incredible what he's now doing for other people who are feeling stuck. And some of his music as well, from that podcast. I've not long finished listening to it, but I'm actually quite keen to now just go and have a little listen of his lyrics. So have a look at that if it inspires you at all. But yeah, really powerful story and strategies and ways to become unstuck as well. Other reasons and ways in which trauma survivors might feel stuck, is one, having a lack of direction or purpose. I'm feeling a little bit adrift. Where do I go from here? And again, an activity like we did at the start, where you kind of draw your little stick person and think about like, where is it that I kind of want to go? This activity you might need to come back to. You might have need to pause and take more time. You might add as you go. But I think that it's powerful to think a little bit of like, what is that desired state? Like, what is what makes me happy, or how can I help? How can you turn hurt into help? How can you turn it into learning? And that in itself is a really nice way to support anybody who's lacking in that direction, based on past experiences. Another reason people feel stuck is this fear of trusting others. Definitely had to do a lot of work around that myself because of past like betrayal or abuse. And so we have to try and move through and recognize that not all relationships are unhealthy. So working on building that trust gradually is important, and encouraging really open communication to provide a really safe, supportive, therapeutic environment where trust can be rebuilt. Once you find a person, whether it's a friend or a new partner, that you really feel like this could be a comfortable, healthy space. It's like asking yourself all the time, is this healthy? And also being really open. Brene Brown, I often reference, but she's really powerful speaker on like, emotions and shame and all of this stuff in our lives. And she always gives this like really cool example where using the phrase, the story I'm telling myself is, that is like a, and it'll make sense in a moment, but I feel like that's a strategy. So maybe write that down. That the story I'm telling myself right now is, and this is what helped me build healthy relationships. You know, maybe when I didn't really know how to do that before. And so I would go to my partner and say, look, the story I'm telling myself is that you don't like, you don't actually like me, or this isn't going anywhere. And I'm feeling this way because of X, Y, and Z. Instead of having a blazing argument, I'm saying, like, this is what my head is telling me based on my past, based on, can you help me make sense of this? Is it true? Is this something we need to like work through? Is it the end, or am I totally overthinking and ruminating? Can you help make sense of this? And if we can say that to a partner and we can own our feelings and own where we're getting that trigger and that experience in a safe environment, whether it's a friendship, a family member, a partner, you know, explaining your thinking, explaining how it spiraled to this point where you feel, you know, a sense of overwhelm or paranoia or anxiety. I think the more that you're able to find that language, maybe use your feelings wheel. I think all of that is really helpful in building a healthy communication. And if you are just honest about how you're feeling, then that person is then let in and able to support you through that. You can then say, like, actually, in this scenario, I don't know what it is, but can we talk about things that might make me feel more secure in this sort of scenario? And over time, actually, you'll start to build strategies and ways. You'll start to think a bit more about what you need as a partner, and actually ways in which you can own and take responsibility for your feelings and own your own strategies. And it genuinely is quite powerful to do that. So, or you can write it write it down. I think that the old letters to people, I always think of it as such like an old school, like wartime thing. But I think writing letters, writing down your feelings, writing down your experiences is actually really important. Sometimes if you can't quite find those words to say, if the conversation feels overwhelming, you know, passing notes back and forth also gives time for that person to really soak in. You've got time to really think about, not, you know, mumble or go over it, like not lose your words. So never be afraid in order to generate that healthy conversation. And that starts to help you build trust in any relationship that you're trying to work towards. And just know that if someone's not willing to hear that, then you recognize that you've tried and you go and find someone else that is willing to work through these things with you. And there will be people out there. So yeah, I think that's it. Another way that we might feel stuck is just, again, these like self-sabotage is quite a common phrase that we might recognize, like maybe engaging in these self-sabotaging behaviors as a way of coping with trauma, which might, you know, keep us stuck. So self-awareness, self-compassion is really important here. And sometimes we, you know, those of us who've experienced trauma, we have this perceived lack of control. So there's this like feeling that I have to control everything. And then if it's out of control, I can't cope. So it's about, again, regaining that sense of control. Is the way that you could do that is by regaining your nervous system. I think you get control by getting out of fight flight response. I personally quite like there's a small exercise where you just point your finger and your thumb to touch, and then you can bring your middle finger and your thumb to touch, and then your ring finger and your thumb to touch, and your baby finger, and then just push in. I think sometimes like that helps me personally. It's just like a little bit of a mindful movement. Take a deep breath. Good. Just pushing down. Now, sometimes you can add in a positive phrase. So shake it out with me. We're going to start by point your finger and thumb, I, and then move along, am feeling calm. I am feeling calm. I am feeling calm. Just think it in your head. I am feeling calm. I am feeling safe. I am feeling safe. I am feeling ready. I am feeling ready. 3, deep breath, 2 and 1. Good. Open and close the hands, shake it out, maybe roll those wrists a little bit, just getting a little bit of that stress and tension out. and sitting nicely. Like that is a really great way to kind of just gain back your body, to gain back your thoughts. And again, we're turning off that super loud amygdala telling me that you know, I'm not in control, and I'm calming my body and going, yes, I am. I am in control. As soon as I have my prefrontal cortex, my clear thinking, my decision making, when that's back, then you are actually in control of the decisions that you need to make and where you're headed. So we need to just pop some good stuff in the sat nav in our thinking process, and maybe taking a little bit of time to do these little exercises just will help us with this concept of becoming unstuck, or also just recognizing maybe what are some of the things that are making me feel stuck. So just going back to some of those key ideas we've just covered and looking at some of the ways to move through them. So it is really important to remember that overcoming the feeling of being stuck after trauma is a gradual process. And it is really genuinely unique, and tailored to everybody's, different needs and your pace of recovery. You really need to consider what your head and what your body needs. And there's lots of tools and techniques in our program. And the combination of them will help ensure that you're dealing with the core and the root cause of maybe why you might be feeling this way. So I think it's really powerful, Bon's processes, and I really hope that you are gaining a really huge toolbox to take with you through the rest of your life and to share with others. I think it's really powerful that you can use this to help other people. Sometimes the biggest mistakes, though, when recovering from trauma is to focus solely on body recovery, but it's a really good tool to kind of be healthy. It, in terms of taking care of you physically, but it's so powerful. I hope you can see to really take care of the brain and be patient, be empathetic, be compassionate, being compassionate with the fact that you're a human being, that we make mistakes, that we can grow and we can move through things, and that you are, no matter what your past is, that you are worthy of great things, that you are enough in all that you do, whether you feel it right now or not, and come back to some of those healing practices. Yeah, I guess another question is, why do I want to avoid certain situations, people, places? And the answer is that it probably reminds you somewhat of that trauma, or maybe there's feelings that are associated with it. And avoidance, like we said before, of these situations, people, or places, it is often a behavior that's self-preservation and, driven by lots of psychological and emotional factors. And again, these things are normal if you feel, fear and overwhelm. But I really want you to try and take yourself out of avoidance and see if you can kind of push through, because it will support with your recovery. It sometimes avoidance just offers that temporary relief, but it can also have those negative consequences that you feel stuck. You're not able to move forward. And I really, really hope for you that you can continue to add to your toolkit, and add to these therapeutic approaches and in mind and body to support you in finding a sense of freedom and getting to your desired state. And so what I want to do as we come to the end of our session, the don't get stuck session, or if you are feeling stuck, sit in it for a while, but at some point tell your brain okay, I've been sat in this long enough. It's time to do something. And maybe your something is to think about, well, I'm feeling like this right now. What is my desired state? And then Joe Dispenza, an incredible writer, he's a real believer in visualization and meditation and the power of trying to be where your desired state is. So I'd invite you maybe to sit up tall or lie down, whatever you like. If you're feeling stuck, even if you can't physically get out of bed, or maybe your brain is just stuck in rumination in the evening. That's when I do most of my best thinking, unfortunately. But I do try and come back to Joe's response, and I come back to my my little stick person. And I try to close my eyes and imagine myself in those places in this desired state. And I'm really trying to imagine, if you want to do it with me right now, you absolutely could. You can kind of just look at the words and then close your eyes. So my first word on my page is fun. And when I am genuinely like, it ebbs and flows, these like low mood feelings, the triggering, you never know when it's going to come, but you can always pull yourself out. Trust that you are in control. But you also sometimes imagining and that finding that visualization, what does fun look like, and my brain starts to think about like doing silly things with my kids and putting on music, and when's the last time I had a dance party with my little ones, or when's the last time I like just laughed with like my family or my partner, when things sometimes personally become quite serious in my brain and my body. And my desired state is the opposite. Can I even picture and visualize myself laughing? Can I, with my eyes closed lying there, can I just imagine that state? It doesn't have to be this big goal. You might not know where you want to go, but you probably know how you want to feel. And so if you can imagine what it's like to really feel like that belly laugh, or picture yourself, when you were in a time where you're belly laughing, get yourself into your mental headspace. You're starting to kind of rewire the brain. Visualization is another amazing tool to kind of move through. If you physically aren't ready to get out of bed or whatever, or you're lying there and you feel stuck, let's get unstuck just even in our subconscious mind. And I put light and playful and joy. I'm just thinking in my head, like, what could that look like for me? And again, your experience needs to be tailored for you. I put free from my thoughts. In my head, I don't know why, but the image is just that, like, my head feels light and clear. Different colors come to mind. So just ask yourself, maybe in a beautiful way, to kind of visualize what would be your desired state. And I genuinely think that that will help as well to get your brain in a really cool process, and a nice habit to move through some of the tough stuff. So let's come to the end. I don't want to keep you too long, but I wanted to say, number one, if you feel stuck, it's normal. Number two, when you feel stuck, recognize it. Use that language. Hey, I'm just in a little bit of a stuck. I'm in a rut. It's normal. I'm human. Then ask yourself, what is my desired state? What is it that I want? What is it that I need? What am I not feeling right now? What do I want to invite more of in my life? And if we don't have the vocabulary, just get online and Google just like feelings wheel. It's just the feelings wheel. Just type it into Google Images. It brings it up, Pinterest, whatever, you'll find it. You can screenshot it, whatever, have a look, and just see if you can make a little sense of your feelings, and maybe see if you can find the desired feelings, the good ones that you want. Maybe write it down around a stick person, type it on your phone, whatever. But there is real strength in writing down those feelings, and then continue to ask yourself, maybe coming back to a talk like this or something different, of, why am I feeling stuck? And can I work through it in some way, shape, or form through, therapy, community, and any other strategies. Moving your body physically is always incredible. So many people walk, run, do yoga, go to the gym. It could be, anything at all, something small. You roll, sit and do some chair yoga, roll your shoulders, what physio, whatever it is. But my point here is just do something to help you when you feel stuck, or if you feel like you're there a little while, find that little voice in your head to say, okay, that's long enough. It's long enough. It's time to take one small step and another small step to get out of that rut. And remember, you have the power to do that. You genuinely are in control of that. Come back to the toolkit. And if you did have a chance, have a look at that podcast, have a little listen. You don't have to like either one of them to find some inspiration in it. It genuinely, some of the moments brought me to tears. And if that man can pull himself out and turn his life around in the way that he has, I think that it gives us hope that all of us can work through these feelings of being stuck, and maybe turn it into something bright, beautiful, and even helpful. So that's me. I wish you a wonderful Friday if you chose to watch this on Friday. I will be I'll make a note, but I will be available via Messenger, like on the Facebook post. You can message me just below the link. I'm happy to respond to any questions. I'm in and out the day on Friday. I'll be on between 10:15 and 11 o'clock a.m. But I'll also keep an eye on it all day long. If you had any comments or questions or anything you wanted me to clarify, I just can't be live today, where on the Friday that you're watching this or whenever you watch it, because I am with my son and he's still too little to sit quietly for me to do a live. So he'll be in school hopefully soon. Not hopefully, I love my days with him, but at the moment, yeah, thank you for watching this on pre-record, and I wish you a beautiful week ahead. Anybody coming along next week, you're with me for Wellbeing Wednesday, and I genuinely can't wait. So see you all very soon. Yeah, peace and love.